Welcome back to the Combo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula here.
And I'm Fiorella.
Hey, guys, what's going on? I think, fam, you think your microphone seems to be
My
up very
microphone is
high.
connected.
Yeah, it seems to be up very
Hi?
high. Yeah, from right over here, I can hear a lot of air in the background. Maybe.
It's the same as it's been ever.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you see this part over here where I have a few dots left over where it's not completely. Yeah. Will you move it with your finger just a couple down?
It
Let
doesn't
me hear
work.
you. All right. Never mind. All right. Don't worry about it. Just make sure it's back, pointed at your mouth, and we'll get started and stuff. And guys, excuse my setup going on. I'm in the middle of construction, getting shit done, getting the internet taken care of. But I'll have a lot of good stuff rolling and rocking and rolling when it's time. Fam, how you doing today?
Good. All right. Mm,
Yeah. What time
yeah.
do you have work today?
No, I don't have work tomorrow. It's been a long day.
I hear you.
A long day.
A lot of shit going on, and a
Yeah.
lot of shit going
Yeah.
on. I mean, it
A
doesn't even
lot.
stop. Like we don't, we didn't even put in the folder today that they denied that War Powers Act. Um, Matt Gaetz tried to bring it up just to get the American troops out of Syria. Not even like end occupation or end any type of proxy war, just to get rid of the 900 to 1,000 troops that are there. They couldn't even vote on that. That's how bad and warlike our Congress is, our lawmakers are, everybody. And who's next in line? Yeah, China did it. It's the China virus. You know what I'm saying? We got to combat China or the Gusano and DeSantis, who's ready to go to war with Cuba, who's ready to go to war with Nicaragua, or on the left, who do you have over there? Kamala, Pete Buttigieg, all authoritarian, all
None of
anti-Russia.
them left. So
None. There is no left in
you're
America.
yeah, fam. I can barely see you. Yeah, your screen just went black. Um.
Is it going
Okay.
in and out?
Well, no. I mean, you just went black. I couldn't even see your face. You
Yeah,
need a
the
little more
internet.
light.
I need more light, and the internet sucks here right now, so I'm going to be taking care of that and trying to figure that out. This light just went out just before, so it's like fuck. I got to figure this situation out, but I'll have it all figured out soon, and I will be able to. In fact, you know what? I will move a light over here right now. I have a small light. I can move it over there. I will do that when I get a chance. But let's jump into it, fam.
Yeah, let's just get started. So what are we starting with?
Jesus, fam.
uh, I'm a little out of it, guys.
I will bring
Okay,
it up.
so yeah, I covered this yesterday when I was on RTL. Was it yesterday? God,
Mm-hmm.
what day is it? Yeah, it was yesterday. Um, and this, God, it's just so obvious that it's a color revolution. It's just so obvious. So basically, Georgia, the Georgian parliament tried to pass this draft bill, which basically would classify some people as foreign agents. And so this protest broke out with a bunch of NATO flags. I don't know how many protests you've all been, but most of the protests that I've covered usually have people saying NATO is a terrorist group. NATO is not good. Right now, if you see most of the protests throughout Europe, like 90 something percent of them are anti NATO, abolish NATO, get rid of NATO, NATO sinking Europe. We don't have, like, we can't afford our high soaring energy prices. NATO needs to be dissolved. NATO's a terrorist organization, all these things, end sanctions on Russia. And this is all throughout Europe, right? Somehow, you suddenly see protests in support of NATO at this stage in the game. And Georgia, of course, the conflict in Georgia has the situation with Georgia and Russia has long been um, a topic of debate. And we kind of did we talk a little bit about it with Patrick? I don't know if we did or not, but there's been a lot of talk about Georgia because this has been a long time coming. Now, this draft bill was supported by the majority of the MPs, okay, of the parliament. turns out that this draft bill somehow got a hold. People started knowing about it, and then they started protesting for the last few days. So that's what's been going on. They've been protesting with NATO flags, saying they want a free Georgia, a Georgia that's going along with Europe. These are the things people are saying. It's really weird. And the way the rest of the West is covering it is like, oh my God, Georgia is standing up against Russia. They want nothing to do with Russia and blah, blah, blah. But they're completely leaving a lot of this out. So let's kind of break down what's been happening the last few days. Fam, did you want to say anything before?
No, keep going.
All right. So just as an update, since the outburst of this foreign agent bill, and we're going to go into a little bit more deeper of what's been going on. This is similar to one the U.S. has in existence, which Russia has a similar one as well that they took from the one from the United States. And so because of all of this, the Georgia parliament removed the draft bill, so it's no longer a thing. However, the protests still continue. Okay. And I want to go back to the 2019 RAND document that was released, because this is precisely exactly what was outlined. The destabilization of the Balkans, the destabilization of the former Soviet states, okay, countries and states that were part of the Soviet Union that made up the totality of the Soviet Union, natural allies to Russia. This, of course, was indicated that NATO would continue their attempt to destabilize these nations, to turn them against Russia, thereby destabilizing Russia economically, isolating Russia militarily, and that was the intent. So I kind of go over the beginning of this, and we'll go ahead and play it. You guys don't always get to see what I do. So, all right, let's just let it
in
play.
the Georgian capital, Tbilisi, riot police have been dispersing protesters with tear gas and water cannons. That's after rioters broke through a barricade near the country's parliament while attempting to storm the building in a protest against a new foreign agent law. Road traffic has been blocked in the city, with mass arrests also reported. Some of the protesters were seen throwing Molotov cocktails and stones at police, leaving several officers injured. Ambulances arrived to help treat any casualties. And earlier on Tuesday, the proposed law sparked clashes between Georgian lawmakers inside parliament. That's despite the initiative, which the U.S. Embassy in Tbilisi has described as Kremlin-inspired, being approved by a majority of MPs. RT correspondent Marina Kozareva has more details.
This foreign agent law basically means that any organizations receiving foreign funding have to register as foreign agents, basically that they're working in the interest of the country that is giving them those funds. We've seen in the past how such situations have been used by other countries that want to influence the politics within a particular nation, and this is what they use. They fund opposition movements either through various NGOs, or they try and form public perception by funding, for example, even private news organizations. So the absolute majority, however, of MPs voted in favor of this bill. This just passed the first reading, so there will be more. However, the president of the country already spoke out and said that she's absolutely against this bill, and she said she fears for the country's future with the West if this passes.
This law can be cancelled in any way you want. From day one, I said I would veto this law, and I will veto it. I do not care about its article-by-article discussion, its similarity to the old American law, which we well know serves a completely different purpose. Those who support this law and those who voted for this law are violating Constitution. You're taking us all away from Europe.
And then she went on to add that this law supposedly didn't come out of nowhere, that it was dictated to them by Moscow. Russia, of course, has a similar law, so perhaps this is what she was alluding to. But also she said that she stands next to the protesters, she's with them, she supports them, and she said that they represent the free Georgia today, a Georgia that sees itself, that sees its future within Europe. This is why we can see some of the crowds there waving the EU flag and chanting slogans of support there. Now, even though she said that she could repeal the law if it crosses her desk, the ruling Dream Party are said to have the parliamentary majority, so it's unclear whether she will be actually able to veto that. Now, Georgia has already been warned by the West regarding this legislation. For example, on Tuesday, the EU released a statement saying that this draft legislation is incompatible with EU values and standards, and it could have serious repercussions on the country and the relationship in the future. And of course, the United States, back in February, they also issued a statement. The U.S. Department spokesperson said anyone voting for this legislation could also jeopardize Georgia's relationship with Europe and the United States. And also, let's have a look at the statements released by the U.S. Embassy in Georgia, basically echoing the same sentiments.
Today is a dark day for Georgia's democracy. Parliament's advancing of these Kremlin-inspired laws is incompatible with the people of Georgia's clear desire for European integration and its democratic development. Pursuing these laws will damage Georgia's relations with its strategic partners and undermine the important work of so many Georgian organizations working to help their fellow citizens. The process and the draft laws raise real questions about the ruling party's commitment to Euro-Atlantic integration.
So we have the standoff, it seems, which resulted already in clashes, as we've seen, sort of eerily echoing what we saw in Kiev back in 2014 after they didn't want to sign the EU association agreement. So we'll be monitoring the situation and see how it ends, how it unfolds, if this is it or if it will continue.
We spoke to American civil rights attorney Robert Patillo, who said third parties may have had a hand in the events in Georgia's capital.
We're looking at a people's uprising, a standing up against the current regime which is in place, but also the interference of the Western powers when it comes to the popular opinion of the citizens there. We've known for years that the Western powers have sought to influence any country that's within Russia's sphere of influence, whether that be Chechnya, whether that be Ukraine, whether that be the People's Republic of Georgia. We've gotten nothing but mixed messages. On the one hand, saying that yes, we support the protesters, but on the other hand, having very heavy-handed police operations and a near paramilitary response to such. If you support the protesters, then sit down with their leadership, bring them into the to government, create peace accords that will bring an end to the protests. But instead, we're seeing the continued militarization of these protests and a lack of understanding or a lack of ability to negotiate a settlement.
In the
What is our behavior? What is it normal for us to do? I mean, it's like that's the whole thing. What a lot of people don't understand. Now this is part of our culture, our regime change, constant regime change, anti-Russia, anti-BRICS. Now will be anti-BRICS across the board. Pushback against any of these countries who try to get their sovereignty, try to pull away from the West, try to pull away from our monetary system, don't want to factor in the IMF or these central banks into their equation, want to keep their own resources, do their own free trade, and not be dictated by the oligarchs of the West anymore. So what do? It's a normal thing. We have it down to a science. We know how to instigate. We know how to prop up. And that is something that's very interesting. I think one of the things that a lot of people don't realize, which I realized when I went down to Latin America and you go to any other countries, is that you automatically think that the majority of the people are for the government that is anti-West. That you think that I think a lot of leftists in American leftists, which there is no left, always thought that the majority of people in Latin America are socialist or want to be communist. And they'll think the same thing when it comes to Eastern Europe or West Asia, whatever the case may be. They'll think that the majority of the country is anti-American. There might be a slight majority, but both these countries, whether it be Latin America, fam, or whether it be Georgia in this case, there are people who are pro-West. They want to buy into that system. So to arouse those people or get them started, it's not that hard anymore. We understand to tap in because we can surveil everything on the internet. So the deep state, the military-industrial complex, the raid, the war machine, the big pharma, it's very easy for them to identify their, what's the next word? I would say minions of sorts that they can just easily set off. They'll know who their allies are. So I think that it's not black or white. People have to kind of factor it in. There's probably a bunch of people within Georgia, the country Georgia, that are anti-Putin, that are anti-Russian Federation, that are anti-collective government, that are pro-West. So for us to just snap into play and cause these divisive tactics, this division within the country, it's not that hard anymore, fam. They have it down to a science. And here they go again in Georgia. You're muted. Sorry.
So Georgia has long been divided in terms of what I mean, obviously they are close with Russia here in Moscow. You have, Georgian restaurants everywhere. Russians love Georgian food. You have Georgian wine. You have like this intermingling of the culture. So there's definitely that aspect. But there's also the aspect that parts of Georgia have wanted to be a part of the EU, essentially. They've wanted to be a part of Europe. It's just like anywhere in these states that were previously part of the Soviet Union, you have parts that want to be a part of the EU, and then you have parts that don't, that want to be very much in line with Russia. Now, what I want to get to is the fact that while Pasta is absolutely correct, it's not that hard because there's a lot of propaganda that goes on, right? And the propaganda is these NGOs and these NEDs. And so if you read what was said in the video, if you listen and read the text of what this law specified, it basically just outlined that if you are an entity that is or a person that is working for an entity that is being funded by foreign, meaning foreign, mostly Western, because the West has long been trying to manipulate Georgia. In fact, the conflict, they try to frame it as Russia invaded Georgia, Russia did this to Georgia, when it was actually the other way around. And like everybody in the West thinks, though, that it was Russia that did, everything to Georgia, when that wasn't necessarily the case. So there's this propaganda that's been just, it's permeated throughout the entirety of this whole situation. And so now what they're making it out to be is like, oh my God, it's so authoritarian. How dare they try to label people as foreign agents? Literally, the United States labels people like me, like the, Twitter, and like we get called Russian agents all the time, Kremlin propagandists, like at every level. And they of course ban RT. They literally ban anything. In Europe, they sanction people if they work for the wrong outlet. That's what's going on right now, especially in the UK. But when Russia or Georgia, the Georgian parliament tried to do it and say, hey, basically to curtail the propaganda, the funding, right? That these NGOs and NEDs come in and they try to destabilize the country and they try to turn people against their own government. That's exactly what's going on. Now, the president of Georgia is a pro-NATO president. Like, she's like, oh, I support the protest. Good. This is a free Georgia, blah, blah, blah. But she is not the only one in charge. There's parliament. So the situation is that parliament and the president are like going at it. And so what I'm trying to get at is that this foreign agent law, like they're making it out to be like this thing, it basically just says what like Nicaragua's doing. Like if you are being funded by an enemy government like the United States or Europe, and you're receiving money to overthrow the government, we want to know. Yeah. Like that's what you're doing. And we're not going to imprison you. We just want to know that that's what you're doing. You're working for a foreign government, because Georgia's a small country. They don't have, much of this power. They're trying to like work against what's going on. They've been trying to be as neutral as possible in many ways overall. Russians can still go to Georgia, etc. Right? But they're painting it like, oh, this is so authoritarian. You have to understand that these countries that are small, that are susceptible to U.S. coups, that are susceptible to U.S. color revolutions and regime change, are going to do what it takes to keep these NGOs, whether they're from Soros or whether they're whoever they are, out. because that's the only thing they can do, because the Eastern narrative, or the Russian narrative, the Chinese narrative, the Iranian narrative, you never get to hear that in the West. If you do get to hear it, it's tainted by, oh, this is propaganda. You're a bunch of fundamentalists, you're a bunch of Putinists. So you don't really get to hear that narrative, but you get to hear the Western narrative. So they are responding by saying, just let us know that that's what you're doing. And so it's weird to me, Pasta, where's the funding from these protests coming from? How do you see American flags and EU flags and pro-NATO stuff out there, especially right now when the situation is not looking good for Ukraine, when we are getting more and more evidence that the United States blew up the Nord Stream pipelines? I mean, you don't have to give me any evidence. I already know that that's what happened.
Damn, it was Ukrainian. It was Ukrainian forces. I don't know what you're talking about.
And we're going to talk about that, but that's what I'm saying. Like, it just screams. And of course, when there is documented evidence and outline, this is what they were planning on doing anyway. Yeah. So
can I also point out too, as well, really quickly though, let me just point out that the laws that they're trying to enact, and that's the Congress, because obviously we have a pro-NATO, a pro-EU president who's part of the minority, and she's on her way out. They don't even think she's going to win the next election. But these laws that they're trying to put on the books, the law that Nicaragua put on the books, and I was on Dr. Wilmer's show with Garland Nixon, and man, Dr. Wilmer was going, well, let me point this out, because we were talking about Guatemala. The people in Nicaragua who were removed from the ballot were the people who refused to disclose where their funding was coming from. Because it's like, I talk about this with elections all the time, right, fam? Yeah, there's election fraud taking place, but still the propaganda sticks. The propaganda works. And the law that was enacted in Nicaragua, and similar to the law that's trying to be enacted over here, are laws that already exist on American law, that no foreign entities can come in and mess around with elections. So we already have these things where no foreign entities can come in and fund other groups there to instigate and whatnot. So we already have laws like this similar to on the books. So when you see these other countries that are doing these things and they start complaining about this, and Americans start speaking up, well, this is authoritarian. How can they do this? Well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? You have the same laws protecting your country when it comes to foreign meddling. Why can't these countries enact that as well? Because if you cannot mess with the election system, or if you can't buy off politicians as easily, what do? You just fund the propaganda. And this is something we talked about with George Soros when it came into Ukraine. They owned and controlled those independent media that fueled the cover revolution. So that's what they're doing. And what Georgia's trying to do is make sure that there's none of that interference involved, just the same way that Nicaragua did.
Yeah, it's essentially that. But this is being framed like they're so authoritarian and these people are rising up. By the way, if the United States supports a bunch of these protests, come on, take the hint. Okay, so here are just more videos, guys. Just thousands of protesters surrounding Parliament. And
you
again,
say that's capital?
It's Tbilisi.
You got worked with that. That was somebody helped you out on that on set. Don't tell me. You probably said,
of course. I have to ask how to say that. I've never. I don't speak the language.
Tbilisi.
Yes.
Did you call him Nebosha?
He's not Georgian.
How do you say that? I know, but he's from that region. So,
fam. All right. So yeah, there's just more of this, guys. More of these images, so you guys see. It is a lot, I have to say. So obviously, the thing about color revolutions, it's not just. It doesn't mean that there aren't people, like Pasta was saying, that actually do want this, that actually don't want to be like that. That support the EU and want to be a part of it. Of course there are. A lot of people, and I've encountered that here too, think that, America is still what it is, that it's better, or like they'll be like, oh, America, the traffic here. I'm like, have you been to LA? Like, it's just, it's kind of funny. Like, the grass is greener on the other side, so to speak, in some ways, right? It's interesting that they were using Molotov cocktails, because that comes from revolutionary type of protesting. But I find it funny, like if this happened in our country, in the United States, do you think that the United States a president would be like, I support the protesters, blah 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 blah? No, even if it's a conservative president, you'd get law and order. If it's a conservative president, if it's like a liberal, you'd get these people are being violent and violence never blah 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 blah. And so you'd get it denounced on either end. And so it's just funny to me how people, see this and they're like, oh my gosh, Georgians are fighting for, freedom. It's like, how do you come on?
It's
Doesn't
so
make
it's
any
so
sense.
it's so hypocritical, and so it's just so much ignorance too. And this is why they don't want people traveling at all, right? Because they don't want people to go
Yeah.
experience themselves. You get on the ground, you'll see a different story. Every single time we get on the ground, we see the real story. There's only so much you can absorb in 2 weeks, but you can absorb a lot. You definitely get a sense of what's going on the ground. But this is what we talked about when it comes to complete control of the internet and whatnot. And they have all the apparatuses to do so. Remember, the internet came from DARPA. So they have plenty of ins and outs, ways of seeing what's going on. And just like the first question you should be asking is, when there's a mass shooter in the United States, what was his contact with the FBI? Is because it seems like when you start looking at the pattern that the FBI knows how to set people off. They know who to identify who's radicalized. They know who to identify who's on their team or who's has their thought process, whatever the case may be, and they know how to set that people off. Well, they can do this here in these other countries. They understand the groups that are pro-EU. They understand the groups who are anti-Russia. So it's very easy once you identify who your teammates are or who your minions are in this particular case, how to move them in a certain way, how to instigate them, how to set them off. They already know who to do, and that's why it looks like this, and then they can present this image like, look at these Georgians fighting for freedom, fam.
And a lot of people have marked similarities to 2014 and the Maidan coup.
Absolutely.
And there definitely are similarities. The only difference, obviously, is that this is Georgia and not Ukraine. So it's this is a little bit more like it's not as close. It's close, but it's not as I don't think it's as obvious or full of like Nazis, but it's definitely full of like of NGOs and NEDs, because the same thing happens here, even here in Russia. They'll say, "Oh, Putin bans independent media." The media isn't independent. The media is U.S. and Western funded media.
Absolutely.
That's not independent. Like they literally, because I've looked at the media, okay, and it's word for word State Department talking points. It's not like valid criticisms of Russia. It's like word for word State Department talking points that are, and Samantha Powers literally the other day was at a Ukraine rally saying, they're taking down, Russia is taking down independent media and independent voices, while we simultaneously get censored all the time in the United States. And if they actually supported independent media, we wouldn't be censored on YouTube. We wouldn't get taken down. We wouldn't have, all these mechanisms coming at us the way they are. And it's just such bullshit because it's so obvious.
Yeah. She also said, Samantha Power, Slava Ukraini.
Yeah.
In her voice and stuff. But, this is the thing that, when you go down the rabbit holes, it was very easy to see, and this is in Ukraine, two of the independent media channels that came out that got the biggest following, that had the biggest reach. And once again, when you have friends on the other side who have the keys to the kingdom on the other side of the internet, they can boost things, they can put it out there, they can push your message. So they have the propaganda, the media propagandist in place, ready to rock and roll. And with the case of Ukraine, you follow down those two companies, and they're funded by Soros. They literally are. And I hate to just throw that name because everybody likes to throw Soros out there as a buzzword. You know how it is on Fox TV. Yeah. George Soros this, George Soros that. They blame George Soros or China for everything. But it is true. You just have to take a look, and you can see this is who's funding this. This is who's pushing this. And at the end of the day, their goal is regime change. That is always their goal, is regime change. And it's something we need to push back against. And it's so it's sad because still everybody's talking about the issues at the border here in the United States, and it's all about foreign policy, foreign intervention, and regime change. At the end of the day, it's something. It's a big cancer we have on society. Fam, I have this next video.
Yeah, I think we've already seen this video, so you can just play it. We can talk through it. I think we've seen. There's just a lot of the same videos are being replayed, but this is again. So you see the U.S. supporting these protests. Pretend that this is D.C. I mean, there's no way, guys, but they'll support another country in a color revolution that will help them go after, you know, um, these countries, governments turn them against Russia because that is the ultimate goal. And they've been saying that that's the ultimate goal. I mean, they've said as much, specifically Georgia was mentioned. Uh, what other Balkan area countries have been mentioned? Armenia, Azerbaijan, all of these countries that have all these conflicts have been mentioned as a way to potentially go after Russia. So yeah.
I think the important thing to remember is that even if they know that their regime change is not an obtainable goal now, maybe in 10, 20 years it will be. And that's to infiltrate the government with as many anti-Russian people as possible, because that's our main adversary, right? Russia and China. We want to make sure that we're always leaning on them. We're always making them commit money, time, and resources over there. And while they're looking over here, something's going on over there. It's a web right now of foreign policy from the United States. There's a reason why we have 1,000 bases around the globe. And it's just like I told my mom and her friends that we have to step up because it doesn't represent the American people. Yes, we're asleep to it. We are oblivious to it. We're allowing it to happen. They're very ignorant. But at the end of the day, I don't believe that if the American people understood what was going on both sides of the aisle, they'd say, hey, cut that shit out. You know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of people now would welcome a lot less foreign intervention, even on a economical scale. I think we'd like to do some stuff back here, grow our own food, make our own things, fix things for a change. So it's a complete psyops going on. They have us duped. They have us hoodwinked. And, I would have bet something like this in Georgia was going to pop off, fam. I would have bet it because they've been messing around there before. And why wouldn't they try again?
Yeah, this has been a long time coming.
We have the Georgia MPs withdraw the bill after violent protests. So they drafted the law, and then they drafted a law that says no. Pretty much at the end of the day, the crux is you have to disclose your finances, where they're coming from, or you have to show your connections to any foreign entities, whether it be even pro-Russia. You have to show us in black and white what's going on. So they already withdrew the law because they know this particular law. And that's why you saw so many people in the streets. The adversaries, right, of Russia probably pushed this like crazy, like, do not let this law get into place. We can't happen. What happened in Nicaragua happened here in Georgia. If they cut off our funding, if they cut off the mechanism in which we can keep Russia on its toes, then it's going to really screw us. And that's why you can see. So at the end of the day, they actually obtained their goal, and that was for them to retract this law.
So, yeah, I want to read a little bit of it. So in a joint statement on Thursday, the ruling Georgian Dream Party and the People's Power Movement admitted that the bill had caused differences of opinion in society. If approved, it would mandate all organizations that receive more than 20% of their funding from abroad to register as foreign agents. So it's only more than 20%.
20%.
The machine of lies was able to present the bill in a negative light and mislead a certain part of the public, the statement read. It added that critics had falsely labeled the initiative as a Russian law and had framed it as a departure from Georgia's European course. And so there, and by the way, a lot of the people out there are very young. Again, this is how it's always with the younger people, to try to get them to believe in some sort of a revolutionary cause that's actually counter-revolutionary. This happens all the time.
But you know what that has to lead into, fam? Really, that has to lead into the fact that even in every single society, when the older people tend to stay in Congress longer, when the older people in society tend to get their ways, they're gonna act laws that are gonna be good to them, protect their stuff, and that leaves an opening for the younger people. That's why it's so important to have governments and leaders in society that are going to look to the youth and say, we're going to invest in them. If you don't invest in the youth, and then you have disparities within your country, and there's a lot of old money holding on to old properties, and young people can't access it the same way their older people in the society could, that's how you easily get them on the streets. That's what I'm saying. It's very easy for those behind who have the keys to the kingdom to identify who they need to manipulate because they're already there. They're already broke. They can't find jobs. All this shit has happened, so it's very easy to twist them in a way to say it's those guys' fault. If you had the EU come in, it's going to be a lot better, fam. We're going to come in with jobs. We're going to come in with new stuff, and your life is going to change. But if you keep going in this direction, it's the old gulags for you because these people are authoritarian and they want to keep you down.
Yeah, and it's not just that. It's also that not teaching the youth about their history, which Nicaragua does very well. And that's why the U.S. hasn't been able to do much there because they know their history. Whereas like in a lot of countries, including here, young people don't really get taught like the reality. They're far removed from the Soviet Union and what happened and what led to the demise and everything. So they don't really get to know exactly what's going on. That's why it's so easy. And the last thing I want to say is a comparable law to the one that Georgia was trying to push was adopted in Russia in 2012, which bears a strong resemblance to the 1938 American Foreign Agents Registration Act, or the FARA. So that is the utmost hypocrisy, by the way, for the United States to and all of Europe basically to not call out the United States for having a law that other countries were like, okay, well, this looks reasonable, we'll adopt it. Why? To protect itself from getting, cooed by said country. But the U.S., of course, supports these protests against such a law if it's in another country. So, yeah.
That's it. Guys, do us a favor. We're on Rockfin if you're a premium member. We are on Rumble for free if you want. Of course, we're on YouTube, but I don't think we're getting off YouTube today. We're only there on YouTube because we need to make sure that we can find a way to get enough fish. I mean, fish, meaning watchers, to come on over. And that's the only reason why we're on YouTube, because it has a decent amount of people. But for the end of the day, remember that YouTube suppresses us, demonetizes us. It's been over 2.5 years since they demonetized us. They want to make sure we had no livelihood. Things would be a lot different if they hadn't done that, if they had a free, transparent platform. But that's not the case. So we need your help. We need you to go over to Rumble. We need you to go over to Rockfin if you can and help us out.
The U.S. supports independent media. You know that.
Fam, don't start in. But, it's funny. I'm glad you brought up, and I'm glad it was in the article. I didn't catch it. The FARA Act. This is what I'm talking about. We have these laws since the late 30s. We have them on the books. You can't have foreign interference. But so when another country tries to do it, we stir the pot and we fund the opposition to it, because we want to make sure that we can always get our foot in the door by having that mechanism to fund the opposition. Remember, our country doesn't just, have the money. They print the money. We force our monetary system on everybody. That's why regime change is necessary in the oligarchs' eyes more than anything, not just grabbing their resources, but making sure the dollar bill is the currency of the world, the global currency of the world. So therefore we can continue to fund oppositions because we're making that money and fuck with everybody no matter what. So do us a favor, share, like, Rumble, guys. Jilly Love just put it up over there. Thank you so much, Jilly Love. We love you. And thank you for everybody else who's hanging on out on the YouTubes. We do appreciate it. But get on over to that Rockfin if you can. Get on over to that Rumble. Fred Edwards hanging on out over there. And Vicky Lynn. So we love you guys. Please do us a favor. Do us that solid. Fam, hashtag the Nord Stream pipeline didn't blow itself up.
Right. So about a month since Seymour Hersh released his article where he basically said that a source confirmed that the United States, with help from Norway and other entities, blew up the Nord Stream 2 pipelines. The New York Times releases this wonderful article saying, intelligence suggests pro-Ukrainian group sabotage pipelines, U.S. officials say. New intelligence reporting amounts to the first significant known lead about who was responsible for the attack on the Nord Stream pipelines that carried natural gas from Russia to Europe. So it took them about a month to come up with this. It's just not a great article.
It's true, though, because it says a pro-Ukrainian group. Yeah, the CIA. Go ahead.
The United States.
They're not lying.
Yes, okay.
And
they're not lying.
This article is free, Fram. Like, this article you can access. You can
No,
access
you
this
can't.
article, right?
I couldn't. I gave you a different link to.
All right, thank you. Well, even sometimes on the archive machine, when you bring a New York Times there, it still won't let you access it. But it seems like they want to get this information out because I've said this before. At the end of the day, they are going to give Zelensky the Gaddafi treatment as far as how they get rid of him. And it's his own people turning on him. Yeah. Good.
Let me see if I can bring it up it's kind of small for me.
I'll read it. New intelligence reviewed by the U.S. officials suggests that a pro-Ukrainian group carried out the attack on the Nord Stream pipelines last year, a step towards determining responsibility for an act of sabotage that has co-founded investigators on both sides of the Atlantic for months. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's only confused your side. You kept on saying that Russia did it. Russia destroyed its own fucking interest in its own pipeline when all they had to do was flick the switch and turn it off. So at least you're moving to a point, but it's not confusing anybody but yourselves because you're trying to weasel your way out of this one. You know, you had to call Seymour Hersh a blogger to try to sidestep the shit. And the guy's been so accurate about so many things. And not to say that Cy doesn't get everything, it gets everything right and doesn't get anything wrong, but the guy's got a pretty solid name, you know what I'm saying? And has done some great work. So the fact that they were doing this, and big ups to Jose Verga, is it Jose Verga or Verga, right? From the Schiller Institute, Vega, Jose. We love you, Papa. Showing up with this group of people at the group, questioning politicians about the Nord Stream pipeline, saying, "Hey, man, are you going to investigate this? Are we going to get answers?" You know what I'm saying? And make no mistake about it, it is a terrorist attack because this is about suffocating people. This is about taking away oil and heat. You know what I'm saying? This is about taking away energy. This is about starving people out, freezing them to death. It is an act of terror. This is an actual definition of what it is. And for you guys to start coming up with it, now you're pivoting to, well, you know, it was a Ukrainian group. It was a pro-Ukrainian group. The F out of here, fam, with this crap. It is just ridiculous. Go ahead.
So I was just going to say,
I was going to read the next paragraph.
According to the Ukrainian government and military intelligence officials, they had no role in the attack and they don't know who carried it out. After this article was published, a senior advisor, Mr. Zelensky, posted on Twitter that Ukraine has nothing to do with the Baltic Sea mishap, added that he had no information about pro-Ukrainian sabotage groups. U.S. officials said there was much that they did not know about the perpetrators and their affiliations. The review of newly collected intelligence suggests that they were opponents of President Vladimir Putin of Russia, but does not specify the members of the group. U.S. officials declined to disclose the nature of the intelligence, how it was obtained, or any details in the strength of evidence it contains. They said that there are no firm conclusions about it, leaving it open to the possibility that the operation might have been conducted off the books by a proxy force with connections to the Ukrainian government or its security advisors.
So what does that say, fam? What does that say? We're going
literally
to put out
nothing.
Narrative. We're going to put out this bullshit narrative. Hey, Mom, you can come in and say hi.
Yeah.
We're going to put out this bullshit. Mom, I can see you back there. Come on in. Come say hi and goodbye. My mom's leaving. She's got to go take care of her nephew or niece. Where you at? Mom, say hi.
Hi, how you doing, Pam?
Hi.
You're looking good.
Love you.
Thank you.
Go take care of your nephew.
Yes, sir.
I love you,
fun.
Mama.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so what is this? What is this? Your Patreon is closed to donation. What? I'll go take a look at it. Thank you, Jilly Love. Hi, Pasta's mom. Yeah. So really quickly, they said this sentence right over here just drives me crazy. U.S. officials declined. I'm going to put it up really quickly because I want to talk about this one right here. U.S. officials. And let me make it bigger. U.S. officials declined to disclose the nature of intelligence, of how it was obtained, or any details of the strength of the evidence it contains. You know why? Because they are making it up. They don't have anything. If they had a link to it that they could say, "Oh, this is definitely good information," you know they would provide it in a heartbeat. But they're backpedaling. They're working against the grain. They have to make shit up, and that's why it's almost what Ned Price said. It was like, well, who is your sources? Is that declassifying it? It was me. I just declassified it. I am your source. No, asshole. Where do you get your information from? They made this up. This is a complete lie, ladies and gentlemen. Complete lie.
Can you put that back up again? Because there's another part I want to read. But the worst part is that they use the same thing on Seymour Hersh when Seymour Hersh was like, I source that's on the inside. I can't reveal it. I'm going to protect my source. They were like, oh, yeah, evidence, just trust me, bro. So like when the government does it, the government that's lied to you continuously, it's you believe them. But when a journalist that's, unraveled so many things, come on, it's so ridiculous. So the officials who have reviewed the intelligence said they believe the saboteurs were most likely, here it is, the saboteurs were most likely Ukrainian or Russian nationals, okay? Or some combination of the two. U.S. officials said no American or British nationals were involved. Who does this benefit, guys? Who benefited from the pipelines being blown up? Can somebody just tell me who benefited? Oh, that's right. The U.S. benefited. Oh, why? Oh, because they had to basically sell more expensive gas to Europe, especially Germany, because, Russia does not benefit from this. Why would they blow up their own pipeline? I mean, it's just ridiculous, guys. I mean, they have nothing. They literally have in this whole article, they basically don't say anything. Notice the writing. The explosives were most likely planted with the help of experienced divers. That's literally what Hersh said, what the Russians said, and that appear to work for military or intelligence services. I mean, duh. They're not telling you anything new, right? There's like, they're not telling you anything new. The whole article, it basically just goes on to say that it just wasn't us. It was some Ukrainian officials. The CIA declined to comment. They can't say much, but they know it wasn't Americans or Brits. And so
what the hell?
It literally doesn't say anything. You can read this long ass article. Nothing is said. You're waiting for that. Okay, here it is. Nothing. So there's difficulty about evidence. How do you, if you don't know anything, then how do you know that it's not Brits and not U.S. citizens? If you don't know, if you're not sure. So they go back on the Ukrainian thing too. They're like, well, it could be Ukrainians, but it could also be Russians, but it could also be this. We really don't know. Or we're not CIA doesn't want to comment. The government officials don't know yet. So it's just a bunch of bull, them not knowing. And so everybody reacted. Basically, most people were like, what are you talking about? This is almost comical what you're saying here. Are they that stupid? And Seymour Hersh reacted. And we're going to watch his reaction because I thought it was pretty funny the way he asked the question, they can't be that stupid. Or he said, I'm sorry, but they can. they can totally be very stupid, but I know what he's getting at is like, this is just, this is a distraction, guys. This is, oh shoot, we got caught. This is really bad. Everybody's been talking about this. It's getting everywhere. People are, it's going viral thanks to a lot of people like Jose and a lot of people, talking about this and going to ask their public officials about it, right? And so now they're like, okay, well, we need to come up with something. This is the best you can do? This is the best you can come up with? Really? Really?
What the fam? I don't know what's going on.
What the fam? I like that.
What the fam? I don't know what's going on our Give Send Go. They disabled it and they've taken our money.
What?
We had over $1,600 in donations. I asked why they weren't releasing the funds because I've been talking with Danny Shaw. I'm planning on going to Cuba to make sure to get this thing done. And now they have disabled my account and taken away the donations.
What do you mean? Taking away the donations?
It says 0, and it says, thank you, Jilly Love, for seeing this. This campaign is currently disabled and cannot receive donations.
Is this the Cuba one?
This is the Cuba one, and all the donations are gone, and it's locked.
Wow. maybe contact them tomorrow or later today for you.
As soon as I'm done with the show, I'm contacting them.
Yeah.
And I just wrote an email like, "What the f?"
Yeah.
All right, let's get into this and stuff so I can call and get Matt yell at them.
Yeah.
Oh, geez, fam. This might be Republican bullshit. Who knows? Let's see.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. We get attacked from both sides, so yeah. So Seymour Hersh can't stop laughing after the new fairy tale dummies come out with this made-up story about a pro-Ukrainian group during the Nord Stream sabotage doing it. I'm gonna write something next week again about it, and that's the way I do it. So actually, guys, in case you haven't heard, he is gonna divulge more information. So let's hear what he said.
What? That can't be true. That can't be. What? That can't be true. They can't be that stupid. Are they that stupid? What do I care? I'm going to go look at the New York Times now. Oh my God! Intelligence. What? That can't be true. They can't be that stupid. Are they that stupid?
Bam, you have to go on this side more. There you go. Sorry, he wanted to turn it up.
What? That can't be true. They can't be that stupid. Are they that stupid? What do I care? I'm going to go look at the New York Times now. Oh my God! Intelligence suggests Ukrainian. Oh my God! Oh my God! Okay. No, I haven't seen it. No, I can't comment on that stuff. What do I know? I've written a couple other things about it. I'm going to write something next week again about it, and that's the way I do it. What?
Yeah. So, again, the New York Times claims that last year's Nord Stream pipeline attack was conducted by pro-Ukrainian groups. This is what Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman said. She described them as an attempt to distract from the West's alleged role in the pipeline attacks. They write alleged to be safe.
Bombarded by the news that the investigation into the terrorist attacks against Nord Stream has a version that this is A, not Russia, B, Ukrainian groups. I wonder who allows such leaks, filling the information space with them. The answer? Those who do not want to conduct an investigation in the legal field and are going to divert the attention of the audience from the facts in every possible way. Instead of leaks, the Western regimes involved in the incident should respond to official requests from the Russian side and, at the very least, take into account the materials of the Hersh investigation instead of replacing them with anonymous throw-ins.
Well, Washington is trying to now explain the situation in response to all the backlash they've received since Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Seymour Hersh revealed in his documentation and his reporting that he feels strongly that it is Washington and the White House who is responsible for the destruction of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Now, this new report published by the New York Times says that it was not the White House and rather puts the blame, shifting it away from the West, onto what it says were some Ukrainians and some Russians. And they also seem to not show that Kiev was directly involved.
Any suggestion of Ukrainian involvement, whether direct or indirect, could upset the delicate relationship between Ukraine and Germany, souring support among a German public that has swallowed high energy prices in the name of solidarity.
Now, Berlin has taken note of this report that seems to show the involvement of pro-Ukrainian groups in the destruction of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. And it certainly raises questions, as Germany was the biggest country to suffer as a result of the pipeline's destruction. It raises questions about Germany, the biggest economy in the European Union, and its continued relationship with the government in Kiev. Now, it's important to note that the White House has been silent in response to the revelations from Seymour Hersh regarding the Nord Stream 2 pipeline and its destruction. Many look on and say this is probably because they don't want to obviously state what is already seems to be indicated and what many observers are taking note of.
If Russia invades Ukraine, one way or another, Nord Stream 2 will not move forward.
If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
Now, Danish officials are going to allow inspection of the site where the Nord Stream 2 pipeline was destroyed, according to a recent leak that was received. There has been silence from the White House, and now it appears this new report from the New York Times that cites anonymous intelligence officials seems to be basically letting the White House off the hook and letting Western powers off the hook and providing Kiev with an alibi. That seems to be what's going on. Now, at this point, we've got Seymour Hersh saying that he doesn't think that the White House or the U.S. government will ever admit what they did regarding Nord Stream 2. Here's what he said.
The last thing the White House, look, I'm telling you, they're never going to say, I surrender. They're just never going to do it.
Now, Seymour Hersh has also indicated that he has further information to reveal regarding the destruction of Nord Stream 2, and this new report is being highly awaited. And there's a lot of anticipation to see what further details Seymour Hersh has to reveal in light of today's piece from the New York Times.
They tell you guys every time. They literally tell you. Victoria Nuland said it. Joe Biden said it. They tell you that they literally said that there would be no Nord Stream 2, one way or another. They said those words. I don't understand why it's so hard for people to understand that the U.S. was involved in this, one way or another.
Well, it just can't be part of the official narrative, because then it's just that it kind of like, if as long as it's not part of the official narrative and people can get their confirmation bias for this war, you know what I'm saying that it was justified, whatnot. This is something that takes away from it. This shows you that we have a different hand to play, that it's not about democracy. It's not about the Ukrainians' sovereignty. It's just about our needs, our economic goals, and what we want to do, and how we want to control the world, keeping it a unipolar world where the United States makes all these decisions and stuff. So this goes against their narrative. So even if it's out there and the majority of people believe it, as long as they don't make it part of the official statement, you know what I'm saying? History will change things. It will. I mean, I can't remember what it is, but it's just like, we were just talking about something recently that was so different back then, but now it's come to full circle where people are still trying to say shit. I totally forgot. I'm blanking out right now. But you know what I'm saying? What I'm saying is that what is written and what is logged down as official eventually can be circled back around to being the truth rather than the actual truth, because that's the way history works. It's those who write the history are the ones who get to dictate what happens. So in several years from now, they'll come right back around and go, hey, man, no, it was not blown up. It was possibly Ukrainian entities. We still think it was the Russians, but officially we didn't admit to that. We didn't do that. You know what I'm saying? They can stick on that.
Yeah, see Gulf of Tonkin, where they still try to wash their hands off of that as well.
And this is a tactic,
or the weapons of mass
use.
distraction. Yeah. So Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, said this in terms of what's now being divulged all over Western media.
You need to read it as it goes along, fam. Can you do that? Or you want me to do?
Yeah, that's fine.
Me or you?
I can do it. That shameful reaction of the Western mass media to these facts, which have been voiced in recent days, of course, will not go unnoticed. And any conscientious member of the international community should insist on an impartial, objective investigation so that the perpetrator of this terrorist act does not evade responsibility. Trying to explain with reference to some Western intelligence services that this is the work of a certain Ukrainian oligarch. Well, I think it's just shameful for those who push such a version through the media controlled by the West. It's not just shameful, it's funny. I mean, it's just funny. It's so, because it's so ridiculous to push that at this point, that it's just kind of like, what? They don't even try in that article. I feel like that article wouldn't even be accepted in journalism school. Like, there's nothing there that supports your argument. You're muted. That supports your argument.
Am I muted?
Okay, now you're not.
I wasn't trying to speak.
I thought you were trying to speak.
No, I don't speak over a lady like yourself. I wait my turn.
So, and the last thing I wanted to say on this was that Ukraine responded, and we kind of already talked about it. They basically said it's a compliment of our special forces, but they're not true. Ukraine's defense minister and says so. They said no, we had nothing to do with this. It shows how strong we are. But yeah, we didn't do it. So it has nothing to do with us. So it's kind of funny that, on the US and Ukraine are sort of like contradicting each other here, because the US is like, yes, it could have been Ukrainians, but no, it wasn't these Ukrainians. it wasn't Zelensky, who has, more of a reason to, right? The Ukrainian president or the military, it wasn't them. It was just some random Ukrainians working off the books by themselves, these rogue Ukrainians. But we really don't know. Like, it's just like a bunch of contradictions, very contrasting to the way Seymour Hersh provided the details of specificity of, no, it was these divers. They were very professional from Norway. They specifically did this as a cover-up. They tried to use these military drills as a cover-up. And it just went right along with what Russia was saying, where Russia was basically saying, we have evidence to think that there was UK intelligence or British intelligence, Americans, and others working to blow up these pipelines. And no, we didn't blow up our own pipelines. And no, the pipelines didn't blow themselves up either. So.
All right. Guys, thank you so much. We're over on Rockfin, ROKFIN. We got 30 people, premium members over there. If you're a premium member on Rockfin, please go over there and watch. And if you want to leave a tip or two, you can do so. You can do the same thing if you want to leave a tip too on Rumble to help us out. Looks like we're going to have to go and get on the phone for hours now. For some reason, like I said, Give, Send, Go, our Cuba account. And we're just literally working on that last night, getting ready to I contacted them and said, hey, you haven't released the funds yet. We need to start buying tickets and whatnot. Coordinating with our good friend Danny Shaw, trying to get some information about what's going on in Cuba. And ever since the COVID has ended of sorts and what they went through, trying to get the socioeconomics down, trying to listen about how their country, the bourgeoisie or the petty bourgeoisie, how all these libraries and big mansions were left to the workers there and whatnot. And they have them as like museums, and just trying to learn everything about Cuba as much as I can, including their election system. And I contacted Give, Send, Go via email. And today I go on it and it literally says $0. And it says this campaign is currentently disabled and cannot receive new donations. So I'm going to figure out what's going on. I'm going to contact them. But right now, geez, I mean, it just of all things right now.
Yeah, that sucks if that's the case. And believe me, we will go after them publicly if that's the case. Because one of the reasons we went to Give, Send, Go was because the GoFundMe folks were the ones that froze the accounts of the truckers in Canada. And that was ethically something we were against. And so I told Pasta, let's find something else. And people suggested Give, Send, Go. So if Give, Send, Go does this, and it's like, well, what do we do? You know what I mean? It's like, God. And I was a little afraid about our Patreon and other stuff, our PayPal, because I am here in Moscow, and things are getting out of hand in terms of Russians and she's a Russian, blah blah blah. So I was more afraid of that. I didn't think that Give, Send, Go was going to be it. But well, as soon as we're done with this show, fams, we will investigate that.
I just sent them another email, so we'll see if that works.
Get to it, fam.
Well, speaking of elections, because talking about a place we're going to have to go to, fan, I'm thinking that I'm trying to figure out the crux of what's going on. Obviously, when you talk to a lot of friends and you say, hey, what's going on in Guatemala, right? And it says exclusion of, do I have it up yet? Let me see.
Yes.
Yes, I do.
You do.
Exclusions of left-wing candidates from upcoming presidential race in Guatemala raises concern. I also want to reiterate, when we're talking about left-wing, we're talking about Latin America left-wing. We're not talking about American left-wing. They're not fighting for to make abortion legal or fighting for many social issues. It's mostly economical. It's mostly about their resources. It's mostly about workers' rights. It's mostly about human rights. That's what we're talking about when we talk about the left, because one of these candidates, in fact, is an indigenous candidate that got 10% of the vote in the last election, and she's just building on a brand and her name, and people understand what's going on. They understand about the history of American imperialism inside Guatemala. Even the Arbañez cabinet that was removed from the United States, the United Fruit Company at the time, so we can steal those resources. Banana Republic came from this region in particular, and that's what this is all about. Guatemala's Supreme Electoral Tribunal has barred progressive candidates Thelma Cabrera and Jordan Rojas of the MLP Party, which is the Movement for Liberation of the People's Party, from running on dubious grounds. And when I say dubious grounds, I really haven't got it, and this is a picture of them, fam. I really haven't gotten an exact answer on why. I would like to go investigate more and see what the rules are, because at first they said they weren't on the ballot because it was a clerical error. And you would think if there's a clerical error, that the person who made the error would fix it and say, my bad, and do that. They're like, no, they made them do other things. Then they got up to speed with all the standards and what they needed to have done. And then they said, no, we can't do this. We can't put you on the ballot because one of your candidates, what's his name? Jordan Roda is facing potential fraud and criminal investigations. And even though he hasn't been convicted, they're trying to say that him possibly being under investigation, they're saying, is a reason why they're not going to put them on the ballot. I'm sure there's other reasons that we don't know of, and that's the important thing. You have to find out the technical reasons. You want to know exactly why, because if they're saying, well, the signatures you got are not good, well, where did you get the signatures from? This is something that happened to Republicans, fam. Republicans in Michigan for the governor races. They removed about 3 or 4 of them because you have all these entities of election fraud where they can suppress people's votes, where they can add votes, where they can mess with the counting, where they can do multiple things. But there's also the entity of ballot access, which is a whole new scandal itself. And a lot of times when you have these systems where you know that you're not going to be able to cheat your way to a victory. In other words, there's just cheating is a way of getting you over the top. When you're a little bit, you have to get within striking distance, right? Most of the cheating that takes place, you have to get within striking distance. So if you're 8% behind, you can make up that 10% when not. But in situations like this, where they're expecting landslides, where people are just done with the government, in fact, the person they're putting on the ballot happens to be the old dictator's daughter, which, once again, there are laws that prevent people who are authoritarians and dictators and criminals to be on the ballot. I don't agree with a law that says their parents shouldn't be on the ballot. I thought Fujimori had every right to be on the ballot in Peru, as well as the same reason I thought Lula had every right to be on the ballot. You know what I'm saying? And this is just my opinion. You might have a different opinion than me, but I don't care who's allowed on the ballot. The people should be able to pick. That's just my opinions. But even still, if that law is in place, they're still avoiding that law and going around it. So there's fuckery going on multiple levels in Guatemala on multiple fronts. And I just want to read a little bit more, and I'll pass it on to you, unless you have something to say really quickly.
No, go ahead.
Okay, Thelma Cabrera and Jordan Roda were chosen as the presidential and vice presidential candidate of the Movement for the Liberation of the Peoples for the 2023 general elections on December 28, 2022. Guatemala is preparing to hold its general elections on June 25th. Over 9 million Guatemalans will go to the polls to elect the country's next president, vice president, 160 legislators, 20 members of the Central American Parliament, as well as mayors and councilors for all 340 municipalities in the country for a period of from 2024 to 2028. This is 4 years. However, concerns have been raised about the credibility of the electoral process following the decision of the Supreme Electoral Tribunal, the TSC, to bar progressive candidates from running in the presidential elections on dubious grounds. On January 27th, the Directorate General of Citizens Registry of the TSE, that's the leader of that body which oversees elections, denied registering the presidential ticket of left-wing political party movement for the liberation of the peoples, the MLP, indigenous leader Thelma Cabrera and former head of the Human Rights Ombudsman Office, the PDH, Jordan Rojas, were set to be the MLP's candidates for presidency and vice presidency, respectively. The officials said that the Cabrera and Rodas could not run in the elections because there was an anomaly in Rodas' paperwork. The anomaly turned out to be an administrative error, and the MLP leaders immediately filed an appeal and the TSE to reverse the decision and accept the registration of Cabrera and Rodas. Like I said, you would think if there's an anomaly or an issue, they'd be able to explain it, show it, and fix it. They're being very vague about what's going on, fam, because this is another area of election fraud. It's ballot access. They did it to Republicans in the United States, and they're doing it here in Guatemala to these progressive candidates. Nevertheless, on February the 2nd, the plenary of magistrates of the TSE ruled against the annulment appeal filed by the MLP, confirming the decision. The TSE stated that the certificate submitted by Rodas as part of the paperwork at the time of registration was invalid because he is facing criminal charges owing to a recent complaint against him. On January 6th,
So why didn't they lead with that? Why didn't they lead with that? You know what I mean? Like, first they said it was an error, and then when they appealed it, then they're like, oh, actually, it's something else. If it was a legitimate reason, they would have led with that. You lead with the reason that is actually like the legitimate reason. You don't switch your reasoning depending on what sticks. That's what it sounds like. They were throwing out whatever could stick. And when we brought this up to our friends who have been to Guatemala, who are more aware of what's going on in Guatemala, our anti-imperialist friends, they basically said the election is already rigged. So, because Apostle was asking, is it like, should we go and, try to go to these elections? And the consensus was that the election's already rigged because they're not going to allow this. Before this even happened, they refused to allow. There was already talk that they weren't going to allow the candidate to run. One way or another, this candidate was not going to run. So this isn't surprising to a lot of people that have been following Guatemalan politics. This is something that was going to happen. Guatemala has a very pro-Western government right now, and it's just not going to change. And that's what I think that's what you mean when you say, we have to differentiate between what we call left in the United States. This is the left in Guatemala is far more anti-West. They're anti-interventionism. They don't want the interference of the West. That's literally what they don't want. So they're not going to be allowed to come into the elections, because if the election process, if you can nip it in the bud, if you can deny candidates access from running, then you don't have to worry about the election, because all the candidates that are going to run are going to be, your friends, your ally type of candidates. So notice how the U.S. isn't doing really saying much about this, because it benefits them, right? It benefits them on this side.
Because both Guatemala is a friend to Cuba and Israel, and I'll point that out in just a second. On January 6th, right there, days after Cabrera and applied registered candidates, the current human rights ombudsman, Alejandro Cordova, filed a criminal complaint against Rodas, expressing unspecified doubts about the way Rodas made a payment of compensation during his time in office. So yes, fam, they are just trying to see what could stick. It seems like they had a list of things that, saying, well, we'll say this. If they fight back like this and we'll get attention, we'll say that. If they say this and we fight back against that, we'll say this. So it's finally became like, okay, oh, you didn't do your paperwork properly. Oh, there was an anomaly there. Oh, there's no anomaly. Oh, you were taking money. There's a question about what's going on. I can't put you on the ballot. So it's one of those things where they're going to constantly do this. Guatemala is always been a thorn of sorts since they had their revolution with Arbanez against the West, and they've made sure that they can always sew it up and keep it under the finger of Western imperialism. Rodas assured that the complaint against him was spurious and was intended to obstruct him from running for vice presidency. The MLP leaders turned to the Supreme Court of Justice. Now they're going to another court. They went to this is the third thing, to safeguard their political right to contest elections. However, on February 15th, the CSJ rejected the appeal to review the decision. They're all bought off by the West. As their last resort, on February 16th, Cabrera and Rodas presented an appeal against the resolution of the CSJ before the Constitutional Court. So they're going to every single court they can, arguing that Cordova's complaint has no legal basis and it violates the right of millions of Guatemalans to elect their right to be to elect and their right to be elected. On March 2nd, the CC declared the appeal filed by the MLP as inadmissible, fam. The MLP strongly repudiated the CC's resolution. It reflects the corruption that exists in our country, registering criminals and denying participation of the people points to election fraud, the party said in a Facebook post. Throughout the month of February, members of the MLP, the Peasant Development Committee, the Guatemalan among the other indigenous and human rights organizations repeatedly took to the streets in different parts of the country to express their dissatisfaction with the rejection of the registration of the MLP presidential ticket. The demonstrators blocked various roads and highways throughout the national territory. The government of conservative President Alejandro Giammattei deployed police to disperse the people and clear the roads. Giammattei. Sorry. Alejandro Giammattei. The MLP previously stated that it would make use of all legal actions, both national and international, to register for the 2023 presidential elections. The movement alleged that the TSE has clearly violated electoral democracy and the principle of equality in law and human rights. It also warned of an escalation of protest at the national level with blockades at airports, ports, demonstrations outside public offices, and the CC failed to do the justice to the illegal rejection of its presidential ticket. And the last part, meanwhile, Cabrera and Rodas requested the support of the international organizations and argued that leaving them out of the race would create an uneven playing field that could prevent the elections from being free and fair and provoke electoral fraud. On February 3rd, the duo met with representatives of the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights in Washington, U.S., and solicited their intervention. They alleged that the refusal of the Directorate General of the Citizens Registry to register the candidacy is a retaliation for the complaints of human rights violations and corruption in the government structures that have been promoted in the recent years. And they've been making a stink of it, fam. This is the indigenous people saying they've had enough. They want change, and they're going to get their change. And the last governments have been puppets of the West, puppets of Israel, puppets of everybody else. Look at this right here, fam. So Guatemala was one of the first. Opens its embassy in Jerusalem 2 days after the move. Guatemala opened an embassy in Jerusalem on Wednesday, 2 days after the United States inaugurated its new site in the contested city in a move that infuriated Palestinians and drew international condemnation. Israel troops shot dead dozens of Palestinian protesters in Gaza border on Monday when the high-profile opening of the U.S. Embassy to Israel in Jerusalem by the administration of Donald Trump raised tensions to a boiling point weeks after anti-Israeli demonstrations. Guatemalan President Jimmy Morales and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu attended the embassy's opening on Wednesday in office complex in West Jerusalem. It's not a coincidence that Guatemala is opening its embassy in Jerusalem right among the first. You were always among the first. You were the second country to recognize Israel. Isn't that funny, fam? That Guatemala is the second country to recognize Israel? I mean, it's just, the jokes write themselves. Netanyahu said at the ceremony, referring to its founding in 1948, Morales said his country, Israel, and the United States share friendship, courage, and loyalty, fam. And that just is about the crux of it all.
That says
and
everything.
You can understand why the West or whoever is aiding these people or these people going off in Guatemala, they're not doing it at the behest of Guatemalans. They're doing it at the behest of the West. They are the puppets of the West. They have always been the puppets since they removed the revolution in the 1940s. And this is what you got right now, fam. And we got to get to the crux of it. You there, fam?
Yeah.
All right, so I got an answer from Gibson Go. You ready, fam?
Yeah.
Here we go. Thank you for considering Gibson Go as a platform for your fundraiser. After careful review, we regret to inform you that your fundraiser violates our terms of use, specifically the section regarding prohibited and restricted fundraisers. In ordinance with our financial partners, we cannot permit any dealings, engagement, or sale of goods, services linked directly or indirectly with jurisdictions or persons deemed at high risk, such as Cuba, Iran, North Korea, Syria, and the Crimea, Donetsk, and Luhansk regions, and individuals or entities named to a restricted person or party list of the U.S., United States, United Kingdom, European Union, or United Nations, including the sanctions list maintained by the U.S. Office of Foreign Assets Control, or the denied persons list or entity list maintained by the U.S. Department of Commerce. We understand that this may be disappointing, but we must strictly adhere to these guidelines to maintain compliance with our financial partners. Thank you for understanding, and please let us know if you have any further questions. Thank you for choosing Give, Send, Go. Have a great day. May the God of hope fill you with the joy and peace as you trust him. And that's Romans 15:13.
Can you forward me that? I'm about to I'm gonna blast them on Twitter, and I want everybody to share this screenshot. And I want you all, if you can, to please email them and tell them that you will not be using them because of what they've done. This is absolutely ridiculous. I have a feeling they saw something about me, perhaps, and about our channel. I don't think it was just the Cuba stuff. They specifically mentioned sanctions and the Donetsk Republic and all of that. So, yeah.
And it says right here, fam, I just forwarded to a couple people, to you and to somebody else to help me out. Check this out. An individual's or entity's named to a restricted person or party list of the United States, the United Kingdom, the European Union or United Nations, including the sanctions list maintained by the U.S. Office of Foreign Assets Controlled. So it's not even like if the United States had no problem. If the United Kingdom had a problem with it, if the European Union had a problem with it, if the United Nations had a problem with it, then they can still censor us and take us down. How about a big FU that these countries don't have anything to... I know this is the United States that's got a problem with Cuba, but they're even listing right here saying if these countries or this entities had a problem, they would still sack us. This is bullshit. This is
First
bullshit.
of all,
and we're independent journalists.
Email them back and say that's fine. They can close the account, but we want our money. And our donors.
They're going to probably refund the money to other people. And now this might... I got to see if they're going to do that. And now this might be an issue for us going on there and raising money.
Yeah, no, we can't go there, Pasta. We can't go on there. We're going to have to use something else.
What?
But we can't. We can't go on there. We can't go on there. After what they did.
I mean, we're independent journalists.
They could pull this out. They could do this again. They could do it again for whatever reason they want to do it. That you can't just, continue using. After this, they're done.
We're fucked. I mean, that's like, what are we supposed to do? I mean, what the hell you want us to do? We're independent journalists. We're not going there on the behest of the Cuban government. They're not taking us in. I was going as an independent journalist to go and document what was going on. Fam, this is...
Yeah, it's bullshit.
I mean, are you guys... I mean, seriously, guys. Seriously. What the fuck are we supposed to do here? There was $1,600 in that account. And usually we don't even make the majority of our money until we come. Well, I was just buying a new camera, so there goes that. I was specifically buying a camera I wanted to bring to Cuba. I was working with Danny Shaw and coming up with a plan. I mean, we were going to go get the crux of shit. We were not going just for that. This is bullshit.
I want to know who their partners are, who their financial partners are. Because what interest do their financial partners have? You know what I mean? It's just really weird.
ARAM. Somebody said an easy thing is do a workaround was a monthly thing. It doesn't make a difference. You got to understand, people are creatures of habit. So when they have a link this is why GoFundMe was so effective, because once they were registered, all they do is hit a button and send it again. Anything that causes people to re-register for stuff, they rather not do it. They got so many things going on. They don't want to go and put their money in another entity. I'm not saying it's not a good substitute, but it's not going to be an equal substitute. It's gonna
I would say try the GoFundMe, but
fucked up. This is so messed up.
Because of the emergency aspect of it, try the GoFundMe, but don't put that it's to go to Cuba for anything other than maybe humanitarian aid. you guys know what it's for, but I'm just saying, like, because maybe it's the election aspect of it. Honestly, maybe it's me. Maybe it's the fact that I'm involved in this. I honestly don't know, Pasta. Like, I'm surprised that we even have a Patreon still, that the PayPal is still up, to be honest, because of the way things are getting. It's better for you not to be associated with me, to be honest. It's really shitty.
You got to be associated with me too, with my beliefs, so that doesn't help you. I mean, I know all your anti-imperialist friends must be going, oh my God, with Pasta, fucking, with this globalist shit.
This is globalist shit. How is it not? Like, so I cannot upset the US. I also can't upset the EU. I can't upset the UK.
United Nations!
And the NATO collective, essentially, is what they're saying. And, this is why even, I'm glad people testify in the United Nations, but we know the United Nations is also under the thumb of NATO. This is exactly why I feel the way I feel about Russia. Like, why I feel like they're fighting this, because this is exactly why I'm here. Because to me, it's like, how are we supposed to do anything when we have all of these people against us? This is what Russia is fighting, essentially. Like, literally, like, these people telling you can't have a different opinion, you can't do anything, and they crush Samantha Powers of independent media, blah blah blah. Look what they do to independent media in the United States, showing another narrative, trying to really get to the bottom of something, And Pasta, I think if maybe just put your PayPal up and let everybody know, maybe, you could do another video and let people know what happened. And because I wasn't going to go, guys,
take my PayPal away.
Cash App, Bitcoin. Bitcoin.
If I do all that and they suspend all that stuff, fam, then I am completely done. Then I have no way of getting
You
money
don't
to
know.
my
Okay,
bank
but
account.
it's not going to happen all at once. Like, I mean, I'm just trying to give solutions. Screaming about it isn't really going to resolve
I know.
the problem.
I'm sorry. I'm not. I know, but it's just.
Yeah, so there are other ways. I mean, this really sucks. $1,600. You should message them and say, you can shut us down, but you need to give us our money back. See what they say to that. That they can't just take your money away like that. And is there a form of appeal? Because they're acting like, thank you for understanding. No, there's no understanding here. This is not something we agreed to. Yeah, I'll make a post.
I'm sorry for yelling too, fam. I apologize, but that is just like fucking. I'm so afraid to even like. Oh my God. Oh Jesus.
Pasta. When things like this happen, sometimes it really works the opposite for them. So let's see what we can do to recuperate that. Let's see what we can do to get you some money so you can go to Cuba. I wasn't going to be able to go just because of work till May. So I have some more time to go in May. And I plan on being there in May, one way or another. But let's see what we can do to get, to get some of this back, because Pasta was really going there to do some journalistic work. And it really, really sucks that this happened. But we're gonna continue pushing through. There's, until we run out of every little thing, we have to try every little thing. There's a multitude of things. Fam, maybe, try multiple outlets at once. Try GoFundMe again. Try Buy Me a Coffee. Try PayPal, Bitcoin. They're coming after Bitcoin as well here. They just released, by the way, in case you guys haven't heard, this memo that said, even if you are not a Russian citizen, if you are living in Russia, they're going to make it really hard for you to use Bitcoin. That literally just came out today, by the way. So
who released that information?
Let me see if I can pull it up. It was on Telegram.
I believe that.
So yeah, it's bad. See the script. Binance. Binance in particular.
Fuck Binance.
Yeah.
Binance can go screw themselves. They got caught doing the same fucking thing.
So here it is from RT. See if I can put it in the doc. real quick.
Binance is a bunch of pieces of shit. They're FTX 2.0. They have answers. They got to come up with answers by taking people's money and using them for their own speculation projects, pretty much stealing money, people's money that they're supposed to be taking and giving them, digital assets for, and using it as a casino in a like casino-like manner. Binance is another company just like FTX that's going to fail and get crushed, so the United States government can go to its stupid citizens and go, see, crypto is bad.
Yeah.
But if you know anything about crypto, you know that Bitcoin has nothing to do with Binance. Binance is a central entity. It has a board. It has people who control it.
Essentially.
Binance
you shouldn't use Binance.
You shouldn't. Don't use them. But I mean, but
this is what it says. It says Russia, the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange by trading volume, Binance, has barred Russia-based users from buying and selling U.S. dollars and euros using peer-to-peer platform, media reported on Wednesday. This is attributed to the decision to the latest round of Western sanctions against Russia, saying that transactions in dollars and euros will be unavailable to any individuals residing in Russia, regardless of nationality. Regardless. So, for example, if I was using Binance and I'm an Amerikanski, I would not be allowed because I am living in Russia. So it doesn't matter that I'm not a Russian. Now they're coming after us. What this appears to me is to be a targeting of Westerners living abroad to get them to return home or to turn and be like, well, sorry, I can't be here in that whole scenario. They're making it harder and harder and harder for those of us who decided to leave, because we know what the U.S. and NATO are. There are the entity, specifically NATO and the CIA, that must be defeated. They must be obliterated into 1,000, a million, a billion pieces if we can. Because this is what they do. This is what we're talking about. We talk about globalism. The fact that we can't piss off the United States or Europe or the UK, or so now what is it? So I'm not a UK citizen. I'm not a citizen of the EU. Why what do they have to do with what I do? Like, this is kind of crazy. So now, what is going on here? So this is like a one world government. This is what I'm saying. Like, this is why so many people are like, wait a minute, Russia's fighting that. One way or another, they're fighting that. Like whatever you want to say. So this is why this is such a big deal. This is why I am so adamant about this whole situation, because I see what's at stake here. What's at stake is you being able to be like, okay, wait a minute. I don't want to be a part of this global government, that is out there trying to control your finances, because this is exactly it, right? This is why people are going to gold or to other types of money. This is why it's important to diversify whatever money you have, because at one point you're not going to be able to access it. And it's so hard for us here, even for people, like us and me and Rachel, who live here, and more Americans, to even be able to send money back home to do anything. And you can sort of find ways. Peer-to-peer is usually what we use the most. Peer-to-peer, like for if somebody has 1,000 euros and you need and they need rubles, you can trade, that sort of thing. But it's getting harder and harder for us to do that. So basically, people are going to have no choice but to go back home, whatever the case is, and become enslaved to whatever system that is. So this is why it's so important to really talk about this stuff, right? And there's no crime being committed. We're not doing anything wrong by going to Cuba. If anything, we're elevating the truth of what's going on there, good or bad, right? Like, Pasta's not going there. Like, it was just we were just very excited to go and report, but that's a lot of money that was just taken away. And again, it's funny that they go after us. Like, it's not like, it's just kind of crazy. I think they do want to nip things in the bud here now more. And I do think it doesn't help that we talk about Russia, Ukraine a lot, that we talk about, the things we talk about, imperialism. So, yeah. So, fam, did you want to just leave this section for next time?
No. Yeah. You know what? We're doing a show tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
So
well, I was just gonna do it with Camilla if you wanted to
let's.
take a break.
Yeah.
But if you want to come on,
can you throw this section in for tomorrow then and cover this section? I only have one article that talked about the geopolitical side, and then obviously Saskatchewan news. I think it would be great, and you'll still need to engineer the show while you and Camilla go on it, right?
Yeah.
So, and all right, we'll do that, and we got to start tomorrow at 10 o'clock on the nose. So we'll be starting early at
9 o'clock for me. Yeah.
Yeah. It's 10 o'clock Pacific time. I'm sorry, 1 o'clock for me now because I'm on the East Coast and.
Yeah. So.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Fam, did you make a tweet? Because people want to share the tweet. Guys, look out for Fiorella's tweet. She'll have it up tomorrow. I'm going to literally hang up the phone now and get on the horn with Give, Send, Go and see what's up. But let me show you guys really quick. I'm blown away. I am just like, holy cow. I am blown away. And I printed it bigger. Where's it at? Okay, so I printed it bigger so everybody can see. Take a look, guys. And it says right here, this is from Give, Send, Go. I'm going to read it again. Thank you for considering Give, Send, Go as a platform for your fundraiser. After careful review, yes, like weeks and $1,600, we regret to inform you that your fundraiser violates our terms of use, specifically the section regarding prohibited and restricted fundraisers. In accordance with our financial partners, we cannot permit any dealings, engagement, or sale of goods, services linked directly or indirectly with jurisdictions or persons deemed high risk, such as Cuba, Iran, North Korea, Syria, and the Crimea, Donetsk, and Luhansk regions, and individuals or entities named to a restricted person or party list of the United States, the United Kingdom, the European Union, or the United Nations, including the sanctions list maintained by the U.S. Office of Foreign Assets Control, or the denied persons list or entity list maintained by the U.S. Department of Commerce. We understand this may be disappointing, but we must strictly adhere to these guidelines to maintain compliance with our financial partners. Thank you for understanding, and please let us know if you have any further questions.
There's no understanding.
Yes.
There's no understanding. Your assumptions are vastly incorrect here. There's no understanding about this. You can take those words and shove it up.
It's so weird because just the last 3 days, the last 5 days, I've been really, me and Danny have been speaking on a regular basis. I've been coordinating with Terry Mattson and speaking about making a Cuba plan, right? Like, okay, so elections are just one part of it, but we want to go and see what's going on with the socioeconomics. We want to educate our audience on what Cuba's like after the revolution. Danny had told me about how it's so different. Like, and he goes, in Venezuela, in Caracas, you still have what we would call, and I'm going to try not to use it as much because I'm trying to build a bridge, the Gusano mentality, the puppets of the West that are still operating and governing inside of Caracas, where Cuba is different because there's none of that there. They all left during the revolution. Yeah. And all the mafia people and all the people who had the expensive houses and stuff, they abandoned their stuff. And their workers that were left behind, they took over these mansions and turned them into museums and whatnot. So I really wanted to explore that entity of it, fam. And I thought we would get a lot of great footage that way, understand where they're at. I was explaining to my mom yesterday. She's like, well, what's the difference between Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Cuba? I said, well, Mom, I haven't been to Cuba and Venezuela yet, but I have been to Nicaragua. From what I see, Nicaragua is at the top of the totem pole. Gloria has been over before and met my family, and she talked about it. Like, they're 95% food efficient. Comandante Ortega, who I said probably other than, and this is so great, fam. I was on with Garland and stuff. They're like, well, we were talking about Chavez and who's going to fill that void. And not that Maduro has not been a good leader and has been their elected leader, but I would say that Ortega would be the top of the food chain of showing how it's getting done. Who he can say, Yankee, go home. We can grow our own food. We can feed ourselves. We can take care of ourselves. We don't need you. And he's been able to attain that in his country, whereas Cuba's on the bottom of that list where they still can't feed themselves for some reason. And I wanted to explore why and see how they haven't been able to emulate what Ortega in Nicaragua has done. Venezuela is somewhere in between some now, the country's starting to thrive, but
Yeah,
still coming out
Cuba
of a
doesn't
depression
really
right now.
have. Yeah, Cuba doesn't really have the oil Venezuela has. They don't really have the natural resources. They have tourism, and that is very, very like dodgy.
Yeah.
It's not the most dependable thing. Nicaragua
Especially with
has
COVID, right?
more land. Yeah, Nicaragua has more land and is able to do the food sovereignty better. And on top of that, the blockade is the strongest on Cuba. So there's
Yeah.
a lot of those elements there. But Cuba and Russia are making stronger and stronger strides. Recently, there was more talk about increasing their relationship, and of course, Iran. So when we're talking about Cuba, we're also talking about Russia, we're talking about Iran, and we're talking about some of the US's worst enemies. We spoke about Iran yesterday, not yesterday, the day before, Monday, and we talked about how they're trying now to turn their eye on Iran. And so these are basically, we're pretty much due for a world war, right? Like, and you're seeing like the different powers. But this is why the United States wants to take focus on Iran, because of the nuclear, they're a nuclear country, and then they're allies to Russia, which is also a nuclear country, and they're allies to China, which is also a nuclear country. And it's not like North Korea is going to come to the side of the U.S. either. So, yeah, they're doing whatever they can to maintain their unilateral hold on the world. That's what's going on, and it affects every facet of everything we do, which is again why this sucks. But guys, I'm gonna put the tweet up, and I want everybody to share it as soon as we're done with the show. I'm just gonna make this tweet, and please share, and we'll see how we can get pasta to Cuba, and find. I won't be going this time around. I don't know if I told you. I don't think I've divulged this information, but my passport got lost, my U.S. passport, and I don't know. I was at the mall, it disappeared. I don't know what happened, so I had to get a new one, and I just got a new one, and now I'm in the process of getting a Russian visa in it because they have to put the visa. I can't leave the country until.
This
I
is
have
all
a
new
Russian
news
visa.
to you guys. So we had attended when we opened up and started the thing that Fiorella was going to meet us there. But she had just kind of realized what happened, so she wasn't going to be able to make it this time. But we had talked about it, and I said, well, I'm going to go, meet the contacts. I'm going to go observe. I just got a election integrity activist in Cuba who's there to start following me and talking to me, and she knows the whole process. And like I said, she had maybe some friends in the government we can go and talk to and see if we can get all access to these elections. But either way, we were going to be able to show you what's going on and how they do it. Diaz-Canel has been out there with a ballot in his hand talking about it. So, I mean, this could be a double-edged sword. They could be saying, it's Fiorella, RT, let's take them down. But this is also then showing about the fact that Cuba's elections, just like we showed Nicaragua, Honduras, Peru, Colombia, all these other places, Brazil, have much better sound, transparent, and free and fair elections than we do. So I don't think they want us to see that. They don't want you people to see that as well. And this is very unique work we do. A lot of people don't do this. Even the people in when we did the Guatemala story, right, fam? I said, can anybody tell me specifically what's going on about why they're not on the ballot? And, you get the typical, anti-imperialist answer. Well, they don't want indigenous people on the ballot and they want their corruption to keep going. And I'm like, yeah, I understand that. But I got to understand specifically as an election integrity activist what's written on paper and what they say, why they can't do that, right? So it's like if they say, well, the reason is this guy, Roda, is under criminal investigation, well, then you can say, well, whoa, wait a second. The person who's on the ballot over there has been under criminal investigation. Why is she on? You got to know specifically why they're doing these things. And this is what the Combo Couch does. This is our area over here. This is our wheelhouse. We know these things. So for them to handicap us right now in this situation, it's really disheartening, guys. And I'm going to call Give Some Go. We'll see what we can do. If we can do something, we can move around it and I can get some funds and get on over there. But I mean, I'm projecting that would have doubled. If we had 1,600 there, by the time we probably went, it would have probably been 3,200. You know what I'm saying? Because we normally make the majority of our money within the 2 weeks leading up to the actual event. And we're still right now it's nice. 2 weeks from the event. So. I was going to buy my ticket today. I was going to buy my ticket today, the 23rd to the 29th.
buy your ticket anyway. It's not that much from Florida to Cuba. Buy your ticket, and then we'll raise some money. We'll figure it out.
I got to see, because I have my car being shipped, and I don't have money. I don't have many dollars to be spared for when my car gets here. I still got to pay for that. I had to get paid to get it shipped. So I'm gonna have to figure stuff out. Maybe we just do. I'll talk to you about finances after. We'll figure something out. I don't know. Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Well, I'll get on the horn with you, fam. We'll figure it out. But make that tweet, share that tweet, guys. My Venmo's down below. My Cash App's down below. It just really sucks. Like when you're a
And if
small
you
independent
donated-
entity like this, and you're trying to do the right thing, and you've been freaking, you know, I mean, it's.
And if
I
you
don't know.
donated, chances are you're getting your money back. So just be sure to look out for that. And if you can send them a message of like anger, do so. That would be very nice, because I would want them to be really, I want them to be shamed for what was going on. You know what I mean? Like maybe this is a law. I don't think so. I think this is them not wanting to disappoint whoever their donors are. But it's bound to happen, unfortunately. Like I said, fam, try different outlets and see what you can do. But guys, we'll be back with you tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll have Camila Escalante from Casocha News. We're going to be going over everything Lula, everything, the good, the bad, everything, all the Lula stuff. We're also going to be going over Nicaragua, because a lot of things are being talked about Nicaragua, as far as also how they're
Cuba.
framing it. Oh, they're going after Catholic churches. And they've been, standing against the sanctions on Cuba, and Russia most recently spoke out in defense of Nicaragua as well. So, yeah. Anyway, we'll be back tomorrow with that, and we'll be early. It'll be or the time we started today. So, all right, guys.
Love you guys.
Talk to you
Thank you
later.
guys so much. Oh, wait. I got some. We got some super rays. Let me go over there. I don't want to leave those people out. Thank you guys
Oh, yeah.
so much. Game.film received the tip. Thank you, the Combo Couch. We appreciate it. Tallulah May, much love to you. And Jim Garrison, 10 spot for fee and pasta. Guys, thank you guys for supporting the show. You guys have been amazing throughout this whole thing. Discussions at the dinner table last night about how I make money, like, because somebody's like, well, how do you make money? And I had to explain to them what's going on, and then the suppression that comes with it. It really does suck. Fam, as soon as you make that tweet, we'll get everybody to tweet it out there like fucking crazy. Can you share it from the Combo Couch too as well? And we'll you guys can check the Combo Couches. You can check Fiorella's at Fiorella Isabel and then at Yo Pasta. We'll have it out there, guys. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. Special show, 10 a.m. Pacific time. Probably start about 10:05, and we'll get things rolling with Camila Escalante from Casachuan News. We love you.
Yeah, and tomorrow will be a shorter show. So see you then, guys. Help us out. Much love. Bye.